Yes. What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. Dana White's Contender Series is over. You know what that means. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We've got 13 fights to break down on this UFC 278 card, which is headlined by Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards for the welterweight title. Can't wait to talk about this card. You guys know that we've been on a 12-week stretch here, a 12-week stretch of no breaks, 3 straight months, the entire summer long. We've been going at it here. This is week 12 of that stretch. So it's been a nutcracker as a content creator, but there's light at the end of the tunnel now. We just got one more week to get through before we got a week off, before we can start getting ready for our fantasy football leagues here. And we got one more chance to make this 12-week stretch a winner for us. So let's try to find some good spots here. Let's look at the numbers. Let's try to find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks. In terms of last week, I know it was a winning week for me. I believe I was up just a little over 3 or 4 units. I forget which. But caught a big break with that Marcin Budai ass shaving of the week. He did not shave ass. Evidently, it was a horrible game plan by him, and he didn't fight the way that we thought he would fight. But here we are. Doesn't really matter. It cashed. That's always the goal at the end of the day. But the read really wasn't there, and Lucas Bresky, performed a lot better than I thought he would. But that was a 4.5 unit bet, which cashed. So that put me up 2 units. Cashed the Yaregi money line. Arbed out of the fight doesn't go to decision bet for Bresky Budai, which resulted in a 0.4 unit profit. Lost on a quarter unit bet on Jason Witt by decision, and won on a quarter unit bet on Tyson Nam by knockout. So I think it was up like 4.11 units. Really good week. Looking to keep the ball rolling this week. Keep stacking those cash tickets like flapjacks for this event coming up. UFC 278, the last of a 12-week stretch. So let's figure out a way to make these bookies pay, you guys. Let's see who's in the chat with us. I know it was my guy Kiwi who was first in the room with Sure All. Kiwi, huge supporter of the show. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Let's get this money this week. We got Blood Money MMA Bets. Just subscribe to his YouTube channel. And by the way, Blood Money MMA Bets, his YouTube channel, is getting very close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to his channel yet, get over there and subscribe, because we got to get this guy monetized, because he's been doing a lot of great work. Good to see you hanging out in here, brother. Appreciate you. We got DFS by the numbers. My guy Brady saying, "Oi, what's up, dude? It's good to see you in here." We got D-Pax is waving the hello. We got Rob Lawrence saying, "Oi, gotta go, but had to stop by and say hello." Good to see you, Rob. I appreciate you stopping by, saying hello. You can catch the replay anytime. We got my guy Victor De Jesus in the room saying, "Oi, yes." What's up, Weezy in chat? I'm coming back to back-to-back big losing weeks. Got to get that shit back this week. Picking my spots more carefully for sure. Hey, man, this is gambling. It's ups and downs, Vic. You know that. And we just got to find our spots. And we always, when we lose, we learn. Even this week, I learned about what I had done was I had a 2.75 units on the Yaregi Lucindo fight, and I had 7 units on the Budai Bresky fight, and I wound up arbing out of that fight doesn't go to decision bet, because I bought it at the perfect time, got in 2.5 units at minus 125, got out for the guaranteed profit when the fight goes to decision, went to plus 180 on Bet Online. So I learned to reduce my exposure, and I was really pretty disgusted with myself about having 9 units, 9.75 units combined on those 2 low-level fights. It's not the way I usually gamble. I'm glad I arbed out if that fight doesn't go to decision bet. Saved my week for sure. And Sal D'Amato, frankly, I owe that dude a bunt cake, because I've been talking a lot of shit about him, and not that I felt like his decision was good. It was terrible, as is all of his decisions. But this time, his incompetence or corruption benefited me. So I'll take it, man. But let's get it back, Victor. Let's do it, man. It's good to see you in here hanging out. Papa Chuck saying, yo, Weezy, is it just me or is Claudio Ribeiro from tonight's DWCS the male version of Amanda Hebas? I'd say yes. I got to check it out. I haven't watched it yet. Every Tuesday, I'm always preparing for the show. So I just don't have time to sit down for 2 hours and watch the fights. So what I'm going to do is after I get off with you guys today, I'm going to put the timestamps on this video, and then I'm going to go over there and I'm going to watch DWCS because I always enjoy those fights. Can't wait to see them. Can't wait to see who got contracts tonight. We got my guy Jazz in the room saying, challenge for the night, Weezy. Make a compelling case for taking a dog shot on Harry Hunsucker. Well, I mean, like the compelling case would just be that he's a huge underdog and this is MMA. You know, the banana peel thing is very real. Sometimes people just don't show up. For instance, Lucie looked horrible against Angela Hill as like a minus 300 favorite. And then I guess my guy DFS by the numbers was telling me that she said that she was injured for the fight. So, you know, maybe Tyson Pedro is coming into this fight with an injury. Maybe he gets food poisoning the night after the weigh-ins. You know, maybe he just doesn't show up. Maybe he's completely flat. Maybe his girlfriend broke up with him. I don't know. But anything can happen. And Harry Hunsucker coming down to 205 is a guy who literally can give you 2 minutes of hell before he gasses out. So maybe he lands a big shot. I mean, I think Pedro mops the fucking floor with him. But, you know, laying minus 700, minus 800, minus 900 is terrifying as an MMA gambler. We got to limit the amount of times that we do that. So the compelling case is that he's plus 500. And he's a big dude. And if he touches you on the chin, you're probably going to sleep. So that's the compelling case. Will your Uncle Weezy be betting it, Chaz? Almost definitely not. Maybe I'll be able to get a first-round knockout prop on Harry Hunsucker at plus 3,000 or better, and then I'll sprinkle it for a tenth of a unit. But that's about it. That is about as predictable of a fight as it could possibly be because Tyson Pedro is way better than Harry Hunsucker everywhere. So, yeah, Harry's got his work cut out for him. We got my guy Daz Files saying, no DWCS results. Weezy probably hasn't had time to watch it yet. Dude, Daz, you know me. He knows that I can't watch this shit on Tuesdays because I've got too much shit going on. But I will be watching it tonight, late night. But, yeah, I have not had time to watch it. We got my guy Andy Gonzalez, MMA, checking in from across the pond saying, oi! Yes, what's up, Andy? Good to see you in here, brother. Victor saying it wasn't a finish, but my man Jose Johnson got the contract. Is that the Dominican Republic representative, Jose Johnson, Victor De Jesus? I think it might be. Yeah, Jose Johnson's a big, tall dude, really good striker. I remember his last DWCS fight. He didn't get the contract. He lost to Ronnie Lawrence. Really tough opponent, but yeah, Johnson's for real, man. He's fought just about everybody that you could fight on the regional scene. So he's definitely fought a very high level of competition for a regional scene fighter. Good to see him get the contract. Papa Chuck saying, Daz Files, what do you mean? It's already over. Oi, let's go. Hunsucker fight week, of course. Travis M saying, oi, where's my uncle? Right here, brother, right here. Daz Files saying, not everyone has time to watch it live. Often when Weezy arrives, he hasn't watched it. He works too hard. He's got that right, man. Oh, I got you now. My bad. My guy, Mr. Jingles in the room saying, oi, let's go. We got M.A. Liren saying, oi, just popped in to say hi. And Heil check flapjacks. We'll watch later. Thanks for your work, Uncle. Gotcha, M.A. Thanks, man. Broke Native saying, I made it. Good to see you in here. We got Philip V saying, sup. We got Sicky Does MMA saying, let's go. Coming off a negative 5.1 unit night on DWCS. Might be a fade from now on. Yeah, I mean, if I had time to bet those fights, I probably would. But just breaking down 13 fights every week with no breaks is enough for me. It definitely is enough. So, yeah, I haven't had time to be able to even get into these DWCS bets. Kevin saying the fights were decent. That's good. Brian saying, oi. We got Harry Hunsucker by Hadouken. That is Ricky Hadouken Tercio. So maybe he could do that, man. We got Deepak saying 5 units on Esteban ITD was the easiest bet. Nice work. Dude lost every round and won, says Sicky does MMA. Yeah, I think you're talking about Budai. The fix was in. Yeah. Bresky got his ass shaved by the judges, so technically it was still correct. Yeah, I mean technically it was a terrible bet by me. But I got to tell you, sometimes the more confident my reads are, the more likely it is that they're just going to go tits up. And for some reason, it's the low-level heavyweight fights and the women's fights where I tend to get these confident reads. And I mean, when I get a confident read, as a gambler, you have to trust that. And I really felt like I had seen Budai fight smart, and he just didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe he was hurt. This is another thing that we don't know. These guys could be coming in with injuries, and being a fighter is very, very hard. Making ends meet financially is very, very difficult. You're paying coaches. You're training constantly. Injuries, problems with your family. All these things come up. And it's a very difficult living to be a fighter. So sometimes, I could see some of these guys saying, you know what, I'm hurt, but I get paid just to show up. So I'm gonna show up. And maybe that's what happened with Budai. Maybe he was injured going into that fight and couldn't fight the game plan that we all knew he should. So who knows? And it was the same thing happened with Godinez. Who knows if Bruno Silva was hurt, because he looked like trash out there. Unbelievable. But yeah, man, trust me, I wasn't doing a victory dance. We have to understand as long-term gamblers when we're getting lucky. Daz Files likes Loosa at dog money. That was the last fight that I researched before I got in here, so I'm excited to talk about that with you. Bananas and Grapes saying, hello, Uncle Weezy. Oi, what's up, Bananas and Grapes? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Immaculatan saying, let's get it. We got my guy Steve ring-a-ding-ding with the donation, $4.99, saying, Weezy, make sure you take a well-deserved break after UFC 278. You deserve it. Much love. I truly appreciate you, Steve-O. I'm going to, man. Thursday, I'm sleeping in. Friday, I'm sleeping in. Saturday, it's a pay-per-view card. It'll be starting late. I'm sleeping in, and I'll be catching up on my database. I'm going to be messing around, creating a 5-round prop template for the Patreon, and really starting the research for next week too. But yeah, but I'm not having to do content between Wednesday and next Sunday gives me 10 days to concentrate on catching up on some of the things that I haven't been able to do because of the 12 straight weeks of UFC. And then I know that we've got a week off in September and we got a week off in October as well. So that is, I'm looking forward to as well, not having these 12-week stretches. So appreciate the donation, Steve-O, keeping the lights on here in Uncle Weezy's studio. Appreciate you, man. Prince of Mischief saying, oh, yes, ass-shaving prediction, Paulo Borrachina Costa. Luke's chin is skull to a point to where it's decomposing or death or whatever you're meant to use that skull emoji for, because, yeah, I mean, Luke hasn't fought in 3 years. He's been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights, a lot of them by older gentlemen. Yeah, it's not looking good for him. David Nettles saying, Uncle Weezy standing them up and laying them down. Whoop, whoop, we got it, man. David, thanks for hanging out. Deepak saying, Paul going to wax Rockhold's ass and chest. Don't see him getting any modeling jobs after Saturday. And ring a ding. Ding, my guy, Go Flamingo in the room saying, did I not tell you, dear uncle, it would take a silver bullet to the balls to stop Nate the Train. Nice call on Silva Mearshart. Whit Quinlan fight doesn't go to decision. Parlayed all 3 plus 6.3 units. Ring a ding ding. Let's go Flamingo. So happy to hear the actionable information that you got from the show with the overs and unders that we do on probability that come from this baller ass prop template that I've created are helping you stack cash tickets like flapjacks. Appreciate the donation. Ring a ding ding, my man. I love you. Brian Lockhart saying, oi, let's hope we don't get any loopy dumb fuck Godinez reenactments by anyone this week. You got that right, Brian. Blood Money saying Maverick under 2.5 plus 120. Yes, a lot of people are on that. We got the ass shit or the hammer, the axe. He's just hammering the button. Let's go, bananas and grapes. Sicky saying, I seen that on your Twitter. I feel like I'll just play Miranda Maverick inside the distance. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to do it, too. Finally here, let's go, says Carter with the Texas A&M. Aggies logo there. What's up, Carter? We got Papa Chuck saying, nice cash, dude. We got Blood Money saying, Sicky, what's up, brother? Go saying, Papa Chuck, thanks, dude. Aspinall and home had me hurting. Yeah, man. Oh, God. Both for me too. Finesse LaFleur saying the judges had Badai on the parlay. They must have, because I still haven't seen the fight, but from what everybody says, and even what the statistics said, it was hard to see how Badai even won one round, much less two. Blood Money saying, hey, Weezy, Brady asked me to be on the pay-per-view panel this weekend before the fights. It'll be awesome to work with you guys. Appreciate you, man. That'll be so cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. Best Bet is one of the best shows going that Brady does every Sunday or every Saturday before the fights start. Sicky saying, Nate, the train was the bet last week. Easy win. He got knocked down in the first, but I heard that was a fight of the year candidate. MMA's biggest fan saying, oi, let's get it this weekend. And Papa Chuck's going to be at UFC 278 in Salt Lake City. If anyone else is, you gotta holler at him. Blood Money saying that's badass. Daz, what's up, bro? Look, we are right, you guys. Sicky saying, I got a feeling in my stomach Luke can win. Both these guys look so motivated just by looking at their shape. Costa looks hella skinny. Yeah, he does, man. Skinnier. Yes, he does. He's finally looking like he's taking the weight cut seriously. But let's get into it, you guys. We've got 13 fights to break down here. I will share my screen with you. And let's see. We're going to get that up for you. And let me just make sure that that's looking as it's supposed to. Yes, it is. So let's start with the very first fight of the night. Daniel Lacerda going up against Victor Altamirano. We have got Daniel Lacerda plus 168, Altamirano minus 193. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 188. So we see that Lacerda here. Let me zoom in on the stats, you guys. There we go. We see Lacerda's 5 years younger here, but it's Altamirano who's 2 inches taller. Both of these guys are switch stance fighters. Lacerda has a couple more pro fights, but it's Altamirano with almost 100 more minutes in the cage. And that's because the average fight time for Lacerda in 14 fights is only 3 minutes, while it's 11.25 minutes for Altamirano. And Lacerda's been doing this for about 6 months longer. Both of these guys have 2 UFC fights, but it's Altamirano with 23 more minutes in the UFC cage. Altamirano, a 50% finish rate as a pro. Lacerda, a 100% finish rate as a pro. Altamirano has been finishing 1 of 2 losses, while Lacerda has been finished in all 3 of his pro losses. So 14 fights for Lacerda as a pro. All 14 have finished inside the distance. He's a killer-be-killed fighter who has never once seen the 3rd round. So people are absolutely smashing. The fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, absolutely as they should. You could tell that Lacerda in his debut was completely done after the 1st round against El Jefe, Jeff Molina. That's a bet I cashed, was Molina inside the distance. I had a big bet on the under 2.5 rounds for that fight. And whenever you see a killer-be-killed fighter like Lacerda, you have to go for these violence bets. And we could tell this dude is very dangerous with his grappling. And when he's standing up, he's throwing really heavy head kicks because he doesn't care if his opponent takes him down. He just wants to be on the ground. He just wants to be grappling. And he doesn't really need to get takedowns as long as his opponent shoots for them, because Lacerda's got a ton of submissions off of his back. The guy loves his triangles and arm bars, and he's very dangerous with them. We saw him get El Jefe's back in the 1st round and be just transitioning from submission to submission to submission. But El Jefe, kept his cool, used good grappling defense and weathered the storm against this guy. And then he came out in the 2nd, and you could tell Lacerda was already done. He had an adrenaline dump. It was his UFC debut. El Jefe landed a nice straight right, and it was over. So this guy Altamirano he's a Taekwondo background. He throws a lot of kicks. He's got absolutely terrible takedown defense, but I don't know if that's really going to matter in this fight because Lacerda might shoot for takedowns, but he's really not great from the top position. He got submitted while he was on top of on top of Francisco Figueiredo because Figueiredo rolled for a leg lock when Lacerda went to pass his guard. So this is just a weird fight. The violence props are good, but whoever you're betting, I would just bet them to win inside the distance here. Maybe a decision only prop on Victor Altamirano if this does go all 3 rounds, because potentially Lacerda, this is a guy who's never even seen a 3rd round in his entire career, and he's a very aggressive fighter. So I think that Lacerda round 1 submission is a great prop to play. He's the underdog, so you'll probably get it at a pretty good price. And I think that he's going to hunt for submissions in this fight. He's going to probably go throw big striking techniques until this gets into the clinch, or until he gets taken down or he takes down Altamirano. Altamirano's takedown defense is god awful. It's terrible. This guy spends a lot of fights on his back, and I think it's pretty safe that this fight gets into the grappling exchanges early. So I'm going to be picking Victor Altamirano to win this one by 2nd round knockout, but I'm also going to be betting Daniel Lacerda win this by 1st round submission when those props become available. Right now, in terms of the prop template, I had fight doesn't go at minus 175. We see a 23% overpayment here and a 13% overpayment here, because only 50% of their combined fights have finished inside the distance. But we can see here, Lacerda has 14 of 14 combined pro fights finishing inside the distance. He's a killer be killed fighter, a perfect dance partner to consider a violence bet with. It's way juiced because everybody knows that De Silva is a killer be killed fighter, but it probably does hit. But I don't think he's going to get Altamirano out of there early because of that trademark Mexican toughness that Altamirano has. But I do believe that we're going to see Altamirano weather the storm against Lacerda and get him out of there after he gasses in the 2nd or potentially the 3rd. But the pick is going to be Altamirano by knockout inside the distance. Next fight, Aori Qileng is going to be going up against Jay Perrin. So I was supposed to interview Jay Perrin on the MMA Engine YouTube channel today, but we had a scheduling conflict, so we're going to be interviewing him on Thursday. This is a very, very fascinating fight. Both of these guys are the same age. They're both the same height, and they're both the same reach. Jay switches stances while Qileng is an orthodox fighter. Jay has been bouncing around between teams. I think he might still be with I was going to ask him this tonight, but didn't get the opportunity. I know he was with Team Sityodong on the East Coast, where Rob Font was training for a while, and a couple of other of these East Coast fighters. Perrin was training there, but for the last fight, he was over at Syndicate MMA over there on the West Coast. So I'm not sure where he's training, but I know right now he is on the West Coast, obviously, because he's going to be fighting there. But and for Qileng, it used to be Zindu Martial Arts, but then for the last camp, he was AQ was over at Fight Ready. So I don't know if he's at Fight Ready for this camp, but we'll assume that he is because he had such a great performance last time out with Fight Ready. And it's interesting because if Perrin is a Syndicate guy, the last guy who lost to Qileng was Cameron Else, and he had come out to do his camp at Syndicate. So, obviously, Perrin might have some information, about this guy. But it's Qileng who has 27 pro fights, and Perrin only has 15. But Qileng's got a lot more minutes, even though Perrin's been a pro for about a year and a half longer. But he's been a pro for a year and a half longer because Qileng's just, in this 7-year career, he's fought 28 times almost. He'll have fought 28 times after Saturday in less than 7 years. Qileng fought 9 times in 2018. He fought 10 times in 2017, and he fought 11 times in 2016. So this guy is, he's a maniac. He's the Mongolian murderer. So this guy is very experienced and had a ton of fights, and now he's finally starting to fight at a more reasonable pace here and starting to take 3 fights a year instead of 12 like he was when he was in China. So Qileng has one more fight at the UFC level, about 3 more minutes in the UFC cage. It's Perrin who has the better finish rate as a pro at 60%, while it's 43% for Qileng. And Perrin's been more durable as he's only been finished in 1 of 5 losses, while Qileng has been finished and subbed in 3 of 8 losses. If we look at the striking numbers here, we see that both of these guys are absorbing more strikes than they land. Perrin throwing just a little bit more volume than Batista in the first fight, and Qileng getting out volume just a little bit. 47% striking accuracy. Qileng throws with a ton of power. Great lead uppercut. A great 1-2 down the middle. He throws the jump knee all the time, and he's very, very accurate and deadly with it. He hits you with that jump knee, you're going to sleep. And he loves it, and he goes to it over and over and over again. So Qileng is a guy who definitely throws hammers. Perrin's going to have to be very careful, and that 44% striking defense isn't going to serve him well against somebody that hits as hard as Qileng does. Perrin, what I like about him is that he's been able to use that wrestling in order to be able to win some minutes at this level so far. 6 of 10 takedowns in only 2 fights. He's got about, well, the control time numbers are incorrect because he fought long enough ago on the Contender Series that the control time numbers are not there for the Dwight Joseph fight. But Perrin has gotten 6 takedowns and he's given up 5. Qileng has gotten 5 takedowns, given up 5, but Qileng's given up about 5% more takedown or more control time than he's allowed. So Qileng not particularly efficient. Jay lost a lot of minutes on the cage against Bautista, but not necessarily on the ground. This is going to be an interesting fight. I do like Qileng's power here. I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this fight. The guy really, really goes to finish fights, and the body shots that he was throwing in the Cameron Else fight were horrendous. And being this fight taking place at elevation, almost 5,000 feet here at Salt Lake City, is going to be a factor in a lot of these fights. If you're betting on somebody that doesn't have great conditioning, you better hope that they can get a finish early, because fighting at altitude at Salt Lake City isn't going to be easy here. And Qileng landed a lot of body shots, and that could be a great way for him to take the air out of Perrin here. Now, Perrin is the underdog in this fight, but he's the more natural bantamweight, while Qileng has most of his fights down at flyweight, and he made his bantamweight debut against Cameron Else. So he's going to be fighting somebody that's his own size here in Perrin, that's used to fighting bigger dudes in comparison to what Qileng has fought, especially on the Chinese regional scene. So very interesting fight here, but the power of Aori Qileng is what I think gets the job done in this fight. So I'm going to pick him to win by decision because Perrin is extremely tough. But Perrin's path to victory for this fight is to use that wrestling in order to change the trajectory of where the fight's going if he doesn't like how the striking exchanges are going. And I think if you watch the tape on both of these guys, it's going to be Qileng who's the moment winner on the feet here. So, yeah, the pick is going to be Qileng. I'm picking him to win by decision, but I think Perrin has an opportunity to win minutes with the grappling here that can make this fight very, very close. See my guy, Diehard MMA Podcast. Clint is in the room. We got Banana and Grape saying I might take Altamirano just because I'm a little concerned about De Silva Lacerda name change. He was known as Lacerda when he first came in. That was the name I put in my database, so I'm sticking with it. I know he's got 7 last names, so yeah. But unfortunately, can't do it because this one is going to be a good fight. Good fight here. My guy Clint saying, what's up, Weezy? Good to see you in here, Clint. Yeah, this is a tough one, man, but I am leaning Qileng here. But I'm going to be interviewing Jay Perrin on Thursday, and believe me, I'll give him a chance to elaborate to all of us why he's going to win this fight. because, like I said, it's a close fight, and there's reasons to like both of these guys. The next fight that we're going to talk about is Amir Albazi versus Francisco Figueiredo. This is the champion's little brother here. Francisco is 32, Albazi only 28. Francisco an inch taller with a 1-inch reach advantage. It's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup. So we got Figueiredo with 4 more pro fights, Albazi with a couple more minutes in the pro cage, and both of these guys have got careers in mixed martial arts that has lasted almost 13 years. So both of these guys are extremely inactive fighters. Figueiredo fights about 1.5 times a year, and Albazi barely fights more than 1 time a year. And we haven't seen Amir Albazi in a year and a half at this point. Figueiredo, more UFC experience, about 12 more minutes in the cage, and 1 more fight. Finish rates are great for both guys. 86% for Albazi, 85% for Figueiredo. But it's Albazi who's never been finished, while Figueiredo's been finished in 2 or 4 pro losses. In terms of the striking, Albazi's going to be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage here, but I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say that Figueiredo has a chance to win minutes on the feet here. Albazi's striking is just much cleaner and crisper than Francisco, and he throws a lot more volume, and he throws with a lot more purpose as well. So even though the numbers are better with a 60% striking accuracy to 40% for Albazi and a 63% striking defense to 58% for Albazi, it's this 3.29 thrown and 7.16 coming back his way that lead me to believe that Figueiredo just doesn't throw enough volume to win minutes on the feet. Plus, when I just watch both of these guys strike, I see a lot more that I like from the Albazi side. And Albazi's throwing 10 significant strike attempts per minute, and his opponents are only throwing 7.5. So I think Albazi will be the minute winner on the feet here. Also love the fact that he's out-controlling his opponents 30% to 4%, while for Figueiredo, it's 36% to 24%. But Figueiredo showing 82% takedown defense. So he's stopped a lot of takedowns, been able to keep the fight standing most of the time. But even though he's got twice as many takedowns as his opponents do, he's not out controlling them 2-1. It's really about 12, like a 3-2 that he's out controlling them. So Albazi's out controlling his opponents at about an 8-1 ratio. So Albazi could be the better minute winner on the ground too. Both of these guys are very dangerous with their submission grappling though. So I think it'll be a lot closer to even when this fight is on the ground. But on the feet, I think Albazi will be much better. In terms of the strength of schedule that these guys are fighting, Figueiredo's win, not impressive. Albazi's win, not particularly impressive either. Neither of these guys are fighting great competition, but it shades towards Albazi here. The line is a little bit crazy, though, isn't it? Minus 450 on a guy that we haven't seen in a year and a half that fights once a year if we're lucky. And Figueiredo's got a tricky submission game. The guy's a black belt. The guy's, he's got submissions on his record. He trains at a good camp. This is an interesting fight. I mean, I got to pick Albazi. I like everything that I see from him. He looks like a complete mixed martial artist. And he's at that age, you guys. He's still only 28 years old. So the funny thing is that this guy's got a 13-year career. He started as a pro at the age of 15, and I believe that's when, he was in London and his parents, they were kind of like moving around. They were in Sweden. And then when they moved to London and then they were going to move someplace else. And Amir said, no, I'm staying here, and I think that was when he was 15 years old. That's when he started wrestling. And I think that's when he took his first pro fight. So he's been doing this a long time, but he's very inactive. And I would never lay minus 450 on an inactive fighter that hasn't fought in 18 months. There's probably been injuries that have caused him to be out this long. And he's got a very winnable fight here. But Figueiredo's tricky, man. He's very tricky. So we'll see how it goes. He's definitely the more credentialed grappler. I mean, the last time we saw Albazi, he was a purple belt. I believe Figueiredo's a black belt. But yeah, I'm picking Albazi to win this fight. Do I think he gets it done inside the distance? Probably not. I think that this fight probably goes to decision. In terms of The prop template here, it shows just a little bit. Like there is actually a trifecta here, but they're all very small numbers. It likes the fight goes at minus 135, but it's not telling you that you got to run up to the window and bet it. So yeah, we're going to call Albazi by decision for the third fight of the night. And the fourth fight of the night is going to be AJ Fletcher at minus 155 versus Loosa plus 135. The fight doesn't go to decision at plus money, plus 105 for a couple of guys who swing hammers. So we've got Fletcher is 4 years younger. He's only 25 years old than Loosa, who's only 29. Same height, supposedly. Fletcher might be stretching the truth a little bit with that 5'10". I could see him being 5'8". But Loosa's going to have a big reach advantage here. Switch stance fighter versus an orthodox fighter. Gladiator Academy for AJ Fletcher. I know he trains down there in Louisiana sometimes with Dustin Poirier. And it's Ange Loosa, who's at Stanford MMA, now Kill Cliff MMA. The experience number is very similar here. Loosa, one more fight, 22 more minutes in the pro cage, but 6 more years as a pro. So Loosa definitely very inactive as well, just barely more than 1 fight a year. Well, AJ Fletcher is fighting about 3 times a year, as he's only got 3 years and 3 months as a pro with 10 professional fights. So the much more active fighter is AJ Fletcher here, even though he's at just a tiny bit of an experience deficit. But at the UFC level, 2 fights, just 13 minutes less than Loosa, who's both of his fights went to decision. 75% finish rate as a pro for Loosa, 88 for Fletcher. Only one of Fletcher's wins has been by decision, while for Loosa, it's only been 2 of his wins that have been by decision. Neither one of these guys, though, has ever been finished in 4 professional losses. If we look at the striking numbers, both of these guys throw with a lot of power. Loosa's got a brick for a chin. I mean, Madalena was just throwing the kitchen sink at him, and every big shot that he landed, Loosa ate it like a flapjack. So very, very good chin. And Loosa got pieced up for 15 minutes by Munir Lazez and was never knocked down. So, Loosa's very, very tough. And Fletcher lands as many significant strikes per minute as he absorbs. He moves well laterally. He throws in combination, throws with a ton of power, mixes in his wrestling very well, and is good on top, but lousy on the bottom, man. If you get AJ Fletcher's back on the mat, he's not getting up. Very, very bad get-up game. And, and it's not surprising for a short guy with as much muscle as he has on his frame. He's not very athletic. He's not very slimy. He's not a great submission grappler from the bottom. So Ange Loosa, I would say it's very important for him to mix in wrestling and takedown attempts here in this fight, because Fletcher will be doing that. Fletcher throws with power just like Loosa does. I don't know if Fletcher has the kind of chin that Loosa does, though. So while this is on the feet, I think maybe Loosa will be at a little bit of an advantage here due to that durability that he has and the fact that he's got a lot of muscle. He's got a lot of power as well. But Fletcher's the more willing wrestler. And I think what's cool about Fletcher is that he has no wrestling background. And sometimes I think for MMA, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as once you get into MMA, you understand immediately right off the bat when you start training how important wrestling is. Because now, instead of wrestling to win matches in high school or college where you're working within a specific rule set of the sport, now you're just using wrestling in an MMA sense in order to find ways to win minutes when you're uncomfortable striking against your opponent. And Fletcher having a football background means that he can just run these double legs. He can just put his head down, move his feet, and run through you and put you on your ass. And that's something you can't necessarily do on a wrestling mat, because if your opponent moves well, they can get their heels outside of that circle before you can actually put them on their ass, and then you're right back to the center. So, and you wear shoes in wrestling, and you're looking for points, and you're working within the rule set of the sport. But when you just start wrestling, learning MMA, you can use that wrestling and mix it in and not have to worry about technique as much when it comes to your double leg takedowns, not have to worry about, the intricacies of how to win points in the sport, but just how to use it to make your MMA game more well-rounded. And I think Fletcher is a great example. Ronnie Lawrence is another one of guys with no wrestling background who are using wrestling in order to win minutes. And Fletcher's done a good job of that. But like I said, that body type of his does not lend himself to be able to be throwing up submissions from his back or being able to get back up off his back when he gets put there. So Loosa's a good scrambler. We saw him scramble a little bit in that Madalena fight. And he's got some decent takedowns of his own. And he trains at a good camp. So I think whoever wins this fight is going to be the guy who's using the wrestling and the grappling to win minutes and to not lose minutes. And I think that they're both kind of equally likely to be able to do that because Loosa's showing 100% takedown defense. He's stopped all 5 takedown attempts against him, but he's not necessarily fighting wrestlers. He fought Della Maddalena and Munir Lazez. Both of those guys are strikers. AJ Fletcher fought Semmelsberger, and Semmelsberger took him right down, dude. And once Semmelsberger took him down, he was on top for the rest of the round. So I think that this is a 50-50 fight. I see why Fletcher's the favorite. I think he's a little more eye-popping with his UFC tape. He landed that beautiful jump knee. He's athletic. He's got a ton of power. But I think he's a little bit new to the game. I think Loosa's been doing this a lot longer, 6 years longer as a pro. And if Loosa finds ways to win minutes in the grappling exchanges here, I don't think you're going to want to hold that AJ Fletcher juiced ticket. Also, I think the fight goes to decision is a great look for this particular fight because I think Loosa is a guy that might never be finished and that AJ Fletcher's got that dog in him too. So I think fight goes to decision. And if we look here at the prop template for this one, the fight goes is overpriced at minus 135 by about 6% when you compare it to the benchmark for the division. But when you compare these guys' UFC stats to the implied probability of the line and to the divisional finish rate, they're both going to decision 3 of 4 times at the UFC level, and they're doing it at a much higher rate than the division does, and they're doing it at a much higher rate than what the implied probability of the line is. So like fight goes to decision at minus 135 and the over 2.5 at minus 165. And I think whoever you think is going to win this fight, bet him to win by decision. The next fight, though, is going to be we've got Miranda Maverick against the Shanimal, Shanna Young. Now, we got a really juiced line, which is going to be a trend here on Just the Tip tonight. A lot of these lines are juiced to the tits, and this is absolutely one of them. We got minus 600 for Maverick, plus 450 for Young, and the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 115. So, I don't really know what to think of this one because it's hard. It's definitely hard to lay minus 600 on any female mixed martial artist. It's almost all the time a mistake. And this isn't Valentina Shevchenko. This isn't Amanda Nunes. This isn't Ronda Rousey in her prime. This isn't Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her prime. This is Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick got ragdolled by Erin Blanchfield her last time out. Shanna Young, though, okay, not the best fighter, not the best UFC level flyweight here. 8-4 career record, while Maverick is 10-4. But Maverick is just, she's still only 25 years old. She's a very hot prospect. She's getting better. She's a very hard worker. She's clearly rounding out her game, not just a pure grappler anymore, showing some really nice improvement in the striking. They both have the same reach. Shanna Young's going to be 4 inches taller, though. and Maverick's a southpaw. Shanna's an orthodox fighter. A couple more fights for Maverick. A few more minutes in the cage for Shanna. About a year and a half more as a pro for Shanna, but Maverick's got the UFC experience advantage with one more fight and almost 20 more minutes in the UFC cage. Definitely good finish rates for both ladies, but it's Maverick with 70% finish rate at the pro level, and it's 58% for Shanna. I'm sorry, 63% for Shanna Young, 62.5%. She's finished 5 of her 8 pro wins inside the distance, and she's been finished in 2 of her 4 pro losses, while Miranda has never been finished. In terms of the striking, we don't really like what we see here from Shanna, landing 3.67 and absorbing 5.15. 43.5% striking defense is not good. Maverick's striking defense at 59% is very solid. Neither of these ladies has ever knocked anybody down. Shanna throwing less volume than her opponents. Miranda throwing more volume than her opponents. Shanna has a high school wrestling background, but she's never landed a takedown at the UFC level, and she's been taken down 8 times on 20 attempts, only showing 60% takedown defense and being controlled for 35% of her UFC career of 38 and a half minutes in the cage, while Maverick's getting her takedowns at 61% and out-controlling her opponent getting out-controlled 31.3% to 17.73%. But I think it's really important when you say, okay, she's being out-controlled, but let's talk about how she's being out-controlled, because all that control time, basically 720 seconds of it, came in the Erin Blanchfield fight. She got out-controlled by about 60 seconds by Macy Barber. She out-controlled a veteran flyweight grappler with a ton of submissions in Jillian Robertson. So, if you throw out that Erin Blanchfield fight, who's on a completely different level of grappling than Shanna Young is, we could see about 520, 600 in control time, but only 350 in control time allowed. So she's out-controlling her opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio if we throw out that Blanchfield fight. So I think that that's kind of important to note here. But let's go back. And so Maverick, I think she'll be better on the feet, to be honest with you. She's showed improvements in the striking. She's younger. She's still getting better. Shanna is probably going to be the minute loser on the ground. And Miranda is taking a big step down here from Blanchfield to Shanna Young, even though she did get a win in there, right? Yeah, Sabina Mazo. She submitted Sabina Mazo. So, you got to like Maverick here. Much better level of competition. As you see, the ratio is 1.73 to 0.7 for Shanna. And, the wins are a lot more legit for Miranda Maverick as well. So, how does Shanna Young win this fight? Well, she wins it, but if Miranda goes out there and has a piss-poor effort, fights a piss-poor game plan, and just looks like Lucie did on Saturday when she was potentially hurt. But other than that, you got to feel safe about Miranda here, but I don't parlay female fighters at minus 600, minus 700, minus 800. I'm just staying away from this one. In terms of the fight doesn't go to decision, at minus 110, 5 of 9 of their fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level. That's 55%. The implied probability of the line is 52%. So it's kind of right there. It's fairly priced, but personally, if you're thinking of taking that fight doesn't go, why not just take Miranda Maverick inside the distance? The likelihood that Shanna Young finishes Miranda Maverick when Erin Blanchfield couldn't is probably not likely. So that would be I wouldn't even play the time props in this. Maybe just take Maverick inside the distance if you're considering the fight doesn't go. But the pick is going to be Maverick. We'll say she gets a second round submission here. But yeah, another juiced line, by the way, as we give you the Luis Saldana versus Sean Woodson fight. Let me see here, you guys. Somebody's saying that Shanna isn't as bad. Travis saying Young isn't as bad as everyone makes it seem, but Maverick is just levels above. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We got T-Rex saying, Uncle, I'm going to be in Chicago this week. I'm from LA. What app do you recommend? Place some bets. DraftKings is legal here. FanDuel is legal here. You can even get a bet online account because that's offshore. They'll let you bet from here. Caesars, William Hill has a Illinois affiliate. You can get any of those. What else? Yeah, those are all good places to bet here in Chicago. And you can also go to Rivers Casino, which is, I think there's one downtown, and I think there's one over on River Road over by O'Hare Airport if you're interested in going out there. So, yeah, welcome to Chicago. Hope you have a great time while you're here, man. Appreciate you. Next fight is Woodson Saldana. So let's get the banner up for that one. Sean Woodson minus 340. Luis Saldana plus 280. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 110 here. So elephant in the room, Luis Saldana has some of the worst conditioning I've ever seen in the featherweight division, and he's fighting at altitude. Yikes, that is going to be a problem, man. Because I don't know if we can count on Saldana to grapple here. He's only gotten 2 of his 10 takedowns at the UFC level. He has less than 8% or 10% control time for. And Sean Woodson has 82% takedown defense and has seen 45 takedown attempts in 5 fights. Woodson is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here on the feet. So while this fight is at distance striking, both of these guys are good strikers. Saldana lands 4.92, absorbs 3.32. Woodson's landing 5.75 and only absorbing 3.76. So while Saldana outlands his opponents by 1.6 significant strikes per minute, which is excellent, Woodson tops him, outlanding his opponents by 2 significant strikes per minute. It's Saldana who's more accurate, but it's been Woodson who's been more powerful. And both of these guys have striking defenses sitting around 60%, but Saldana's is a little bit better. Woodson throws a little more volume than Saldana does and has a better volume ratio in comparison to his opponents. So Saldana, in order to win this fight, I think he's really going to need to walk down Sean Woodson. He's going to need to get inside. And it's going to be, he's going to have to push a pace. He's going to have to really push a pace. And I don't think he's capable of pushing a pace. He just got tired against Bruno Sosa. Let that sink in. He got tired against Bruno Sosa, a guy who does nothing, a karate striker who stands 15 feet away from his competition and just bounces. He got tired there. Sean Woodson, is going to be a really tough test for Luis Saldana. Did Saldana make improvements to his conditioning? I have no way of knowing that. But knowing that this fight is at elevation, knowing that Saldana is probably not going to be able to get to the grappling in this fight, knowing that Sean Woodson has shown fantastic conditioning and fantastic takedown defense and was really, really showing some sweet hands in the last fight. He's minus 340 here, but he's got to win this fight. I don't see Saldana winning this fight. I don't think Saldana's on Woodson's level here. The size is going to be too much. Now, Woodson's a lot less inexperienced here, right? Saldana's got 23 professional fights, 13 more fights, and 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and 5.5 more years as a pro. So, that's important, but Woodson's got just as much time at the UFC level as Saldana does. And if you look at the strength of schedule, Saldana a 0.6 ratio with only 2 fights, Woodson a 1.08 ratio, 5.4 total fights. You look at the wins, right? A win against Bruno Sosa, close fight. A loss against Austin Lingo. A win against Jordan Griffin by unanimous decision. I thought Griffin won that fight. He knocked out Vince Murdoch. But you see, Bochniak, Terrence McKinney, Julian Erosa, Zalal, and Anglin. He's just fought the better brand of competition at the UFC level. So I give Woodson the strength of schedule advantage. I give him the striking advantage. I give him the size advantage. Saldana's got an experience advantage. And that's about it, because both of these guys are fantastic finishers. Or I'm sorry, it's Saldana who's the 87% finish rate. Woodson only a 44% finish rate. And Woodson has been subbed in his only loss. So Saldana's a guy who's got some submissions on his record. He's got 5 of them. So maybe he can find Woodson in a front choke or something like that. I think that'd be his best path here. But if this thing stays standing, Woodson wins this one all day. And, even though Saldana's only been knocked out once, man, if Woodson's going to that body like he did in the Anglin fight, and Saldana hasn't fixed that conditioning yet, I think Woodson's definitely live for a second or a third round knockout in this fight. But, Saldana could prove us wrong. He could come out and show us that he's been on that treadmill. But like I said, man, if you're 23 fights into your career and you haven't fixed your fucking conditioning and you're getting tired against Bruno Sosa, I think he's going to die in Salt Lake City at the altitude. And I think Sean Woodson's a horrible opponent for him. I'm picking Sean Woodson to win this one by late second round knockout. The next fight, you guys, it's Wu Yanan fight week. And I think I've got it here in my downloads. It's the Wu Yanan Tang clan here. We got the pictures to prove it, you guys. Wu Yanan indeed is a part of the Wu-Tang clan. You see her there with the RZA, the Jizza, Inspector Deck, Raekwon the Chef, You God, Method Man's over there. I even see Capadonna in that picture. So look, this could be the time to get on the Wu Yanan train. And I know what you're saying, guys. I know what you're saying. Hey, she's 1-4 in the UFC. Her only win is over Lauren Princess Tiger Mueller. How are you picking her to win this fight? Well, she's fighting Lucie Pudilova, who just lost to Talita Bernardo in Octagon. If this picture is genuine and Wu Yanan is a member of the Wu-Tang clan, I mean, can you really pass on betting her at plus 110? I don't think so. Now, I'm no expert on Photoshop, and yes, it looks like Wu Yanan's missing a hand here. So it could be a fake. But like I said, I'm no expert. So I don't have the answer for you on this, but I'm just saying, if you got money on Pudilova and you find out that this picture is genuine, just arb out of it, okay? Because if she's a member of the Wu-Tang clan, she's not losing this fight. Plain and simple. So who wins this fight? Well, maybe you should ask somebody who gives a shit, because it's not me, you guys. I just don't care. Look, 12 straight weeks of UFC. I'm burnt out. I'm exhausted. 12 weeks is a grind. I do shows 5 days a week, and it was 6 days a week just a couple of weeks ago before we moved probability from Thursday to Monday. So I didn't watch any tape on this fight. I'm not going to watch any tape on this fight. Both of these ladies are probably not UFC level. If I'm looking at the numbers here, I could see Pudilova winning some minutes on the feet. I could see Wu-Tang getting the tank down and potentially winning some minutes on the ground. Pudilova does not do well when her opponents are shooting takedowns, and she's only showing a 61% takedown defense, and she's getting controlled 21% of her UFC career. The UFC level of competition, both 0.75 ratios, but Pudilova has got more total fights. The win, I should say, a little bit. Flip a coin. See if I fucking care. Wu-Tang by decision. Next fucking fight. Leo Santos plus 225 versus Jared Gordon minus 265. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 120. Let's talk about this one, because I got a couple of tracked bets on this one. The ancient Leonardo Santos, clocking in at 42 years old, will be coming into the cage with his walker and his slippers. As Jared Gordon is 33 years old, he's died twice. He's one of those guys that has conditioning like Court McGee because he's died twice from heroin overdoses. You can't kill this dude. You can knock him out, but you can't kill him. It's going to be Santos, who's much, much, much bigger here. 5 inches taller, 7-inch reach advantage. They're both orthodox fighters. Jared Gordon at Sanford, Novo União for Leonardo Santos. One more fight for Santos, but 80 more minutes in the pro cage for Jared Gordon. Santos, an 8-minute average fight time, 11 3/4 for Jared, and it's about 9 more years as a pro, 8.5 more years as a pro for Leonardo Santos. You know, I said that he shows up about once a year to fight. He'll give you 6 or 7 minutes of hell, and then he'll be tired, and this one's at altitude, so I don't know how many good minutes Leonardo Santos can give us on Saturday, especially at the age of 42. But I do know a couple of things. Number one, you know, Leonardo Santos is just a better fighter. He's got a lot more power on the feet. He's the far more dangerous submission grappler. He's fought the better brand of competition. He's beaten the better brand of competition. He's a multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion at the black belt level. The guy's a BJJ legend. And you know, his last 2 fights are a little bit misleading. He's 0-2 in his last 2 fights, but he could easily be 2-0 against guys like Grant Dawson and Clay Guida. Grant Dawson destroyed Jared Gordon, went through him like a hot knife through butter. Leonardo Santos won the first 2.5 rounds against Grant, got taken down, and then Grant landed a big shot with 1 second left in the fight that knocked out Leonardo Santos. If that shot doesn't land, Leonardo Santos wins that fight by decision. And if Keith Peterson wasn't a referee that's ready to let everybody die in that cage before he steps in and stops fights, that would have been a first-round knockout for against Clay Guida. Any other ref, maybe Mike Beltran doesn't stop it, but any other ref in the UFC stops that fight. So Santos, you know, could be on a several fight winning streak here. I just want to look at that, by the way, you guys, because I know what this winning streak would be. I want to know what the winning streak would be if it weren't for those results. So, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. His last, it was a draw to Norman Park. So it would actually be at least an 8-fight unbeaten streak for Santos here. And, you know, the common opponent, Grant Dawson, you know, Santos just performed much better against him, and he's the much better striker. So I realize what's happening here. I get it. You know, Jared Gordon has got the far superior conditioning. That absolutely matters here. But where else is he better? You know, you're talking about a guy in Leonardo Santos who has 3 knockdowns. He's got way more power. We got a guy in Gordon who's been knocked out in every single loss that he's had at the UFC level. He's been knocked out 3 times and subbed once. A guy that's very chinny. And Santos hits like a truck. And Santos, you know, showing 87% takedown defense, not a willing wrestler, only 24 takedown attempts in 10 fights, while Gordon has set up 43 in 10 fights. But is Gordon taking down Santos? And if he does he get submitted? How does Jared Gordon win minutes in this fight? I'm asking seriously. Because I don't see him winning minutes on the feet. Are we just waiting for Leo to get tired? Are we betting against Leo because he's 42 years old? I bet Leo for 1 unit at plus 260 earlier in the week because I laughed out loud when I saw Jared Gordon at minus 300. You're talking about a guy who could barely win minutes against Joe Solecki on the feet. Joe Solecki was winning striking exchanges with Jared Gordon. Leo is going to piece him up on the feet. Leo's got a ton of power. Jared's very chinny. Leo is a great submission grappler. Does Jared just take him down and lay him prey for 15 minutes? Is he going to take down a guy with 87% takedown defense that stuffed 40 of 46 takedowns? I don't know how that happens here. Yeah, it's a very interesting fight for me because when we go over here to the strength of schedule, we see that Gordon's ratio is better, but Santos is fighting the more experienced competition. And when you look at the wins, guys, 1.61 ratio for Santos, 1 for Gordon. Gordon's fighting guys with average 3.3 fights. Well, for Santos, it's 8.57. Like I said, you guys, I laughed out loud when I saw this line. I get that Jared Gordon might be able to grind out a decision here. I get that Leo Santos might give us 5 minutes of hell and then quit on the stool. I know he's 42 years old. I know he's thinking about retirement. But let's talk about what we've seen in the cage, which is really the only thing that fucking matters. What's happened in the cage? Are you seeing something in Jared Gordon's pitiful performance against Grant Dawson when Grant Dawson just manhandled him while Santos won the first 2 rounds against Grant Dawson? And then is Gordon finishing Santos in the third after he loses the first 2 rounds? I'm just not sure how this happens. I'm interested to see what you guys are saying. Let's see here. Santos is a killer for an old guy, says Zero Bob. Yeah, he is. I mean, Gordon's underrated, but the odds are a bit high. They're more than a bit high, but Gordon is underrated. He's a great fighter. And did I just see that my guy Kiwi is in here making donations? Ring a ding ding. He says, love it. I love you, Kiwi, for supporting the channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Yeah, and Michael Pans is saying that Wu Yanan's nickname really should be Tang Clan. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely should. It's so much better than Mulan. What a shit nickname. Give her the UFC should force her to change her nickname to Tang Clan. I mean, how much more support would Wu Yanan get? I don't give a shit about her fight, but I'll tell you one fucking thing. If she changes her name to Tang Clan from Mulan, I'm fucking tuning in for that fight, and I'm probably betting a unit on her. So yeah, man, this is about marketing. Sometimes as a fighter, you got to do something, but then give yourself a shitty Patty Pimblett haircut to expect people to give a shit. You got to do more than that, Wu. But thank you guys for hanging out. Let me just see something here real quick. We've got 77 of you hanging out here on Tuesday night. I appreciate each and every one of you. The pick for this fight, I'm picking Leonardo Santos to win this one by first round knockout. I've got the bet on him at plus 260, 1 unit. I've also got the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. And if you watched Probability yesterday, you saw that this was the trifecta here, as the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at 45.45%. We got a 5.12% break when we compare the benchmark to that implied probability. We got a 9.55% break when we put the fighter finish rates up against the implied probability of the line. And we got a 4.43% break when we compare the fighter finish rates to the divisional finish rate. We call that the trifecta. And I've got a 1 unit bet on this fight finishing inside the distance at plus 120. And that brings us to the main card. And it's been a 12-week stretch, you guys. There's something that I have not done for you guys in a very long time. So we're going to do it this week. We're going to take a little break here, and we're going to do story time with Uncle Weezy. So before we get to this main card, I want to take you back to the year 2004. Now, I started working on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange back in 1998. And I was making a ton of money. I was a young man, showing up for work at 8:45 in the morning, like 8:15 in the morning, leaving out the door at 3:01, spending money, having a great time, being young, partying, making money. Things were really good. And then the towers fell on September 11th, 2001. And then the markets were starting to crash even before that happened. I was trading NASDAQ stocks. Everything went to hell in a handbasket. Long story short, we all lost our jobs. I lost my job in May of 2002. And when you're a young man, so in 2002, I would have been 28 years old. When you're a young man and you're used to making money and only working a 6.5 hour day, and then you lose your job, you find out real quick, life hits you in the face with a brick when you're like, hey, I'd still like my 6-figure job and I still only want to work 6.5 hours a day. Where can I get that kind of job? Turns out you can't get it anywhere. So I was kind of like bouncing around the business. I was unemployed for a while. Wound up getting a job at an options trading firm where I was a broker. Like I would answer phone calls there, put in trades for our bigger customers, Series 7, Series 63, do some brokerage work, phone broker. And I hated this job. I fucking hated this job that I had. And I would show up every day just in a miserable mood, sit down, do my job, coast through, do the least amount of work possible. I hated my fucking boss, hated everything about this job. We all hated it together. And, it was just a really rough part in my life because I was coming off of this high, I was earning really, really well working on the floor of the stock exchange, had a really high opinion of myself. And then it kind of all fell apart like a Chinese motorcycle. And I was left wondering what happened, And so I can remember one day showing up to work and everybody that I work with who would always show up earlier than me because I didn't give a fuck. I was always the last one there and the first one gone. And they're waiting outside the door. And I'm like, why are you not in there? And they're like, well, the door's locked. Somebody forgot their key. We're out here. I don't know why the door was locked, but the door was locked. And the person who had forgot the key wouldn't have normally not been a big deal because we had some German guys in the back that traded overnight. And so we could ring the bell there and they would come and get the door. So we rang the bell. Nobody answered. We rang the bell again 2 minutes later. Nobody answers. We're like, oh, I wonder if they're still trading, We ring the bell again and nobody answers. And then all of a sudden, there's this office next to us where this guy comes out and he's like, hey, that fucking bell is louder than shit. Stop ringing it. And we're pretty blown away because it's like, it's at this point, it's like 7:45, 8 o'clock in the morning. We're barely sipping on our coffee at this point. And we were all just kind of like slack-jawed and just like with our mouth open, like, who the hell is this guy, first of all? And how dare him tell us not to ring our own bell when we're trying to get into our fucking brokerage firm? And people were, this guy, Dell, that I worked with was like, hey, man, we're just ringing the bell. We're trying to get the attention of the traders in the back. And he's like, stop ringing the bell. It's a pain in the ass. And then the guy walks back into his own office and slams the door behind him. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what the fuck just happened? Who is this guy? I didn't even know we had neighbors, but this guy's yelling at us. And I remember thinking, so 10, 15 minutes later, my boss shows up. She's got the key. We get into work. We do our job. But I just, I hated that job so much. And I remember it grating on me the rest of the day that I let this guy come out and yell at us for no fucking reason. Like he has some kind of privilege to never hear our bell when we're locked out. And I didn't say anything to him. And I kind of felt like a fucking loser. I'm like, why didn't you just fucking tell that guy, hey, fuck you, buddy. We're trying to get to our job. If you don't want to hear the bell, put in earplugs, turn on a radio. I don't give a fuck, but it's none of your goddamn business. But I didn't say all that. I was just left frozen. I did nothing about it. And I remember even having trouble sleeping that night, thinking to myself, dude, how did you wind up in this spot? You got a job. You used to be making 6 figures just out of college. Now you're scraping together 30 grand a year, working a job you hate. And then you have this fat prick next door come out and bust your balls for ringing the bell. And you don't even have the balls to tell him to fuck off. So I remember going into work the next day feeling like a little bit of a pussy, like a guy that, lets people walk all over him. And I was just pissed off about it. So my morning routine, the next day I go in, the morning routine is the same. I hate my fucking job. So I go in there, I do the things that I'm supposed to do right away when I get there. The work starts, and then after the markets slow down after the first half hour, I have a daily ritual where I go up, go to the bathroom to take a dump, and I sit in there for like a half an hour, just passing time with my head in my hands, kind of asking myself the same fucking question over and over again. How did you get yourself into this situation? How are you working this job that you fucking hate? And I would just sit there on the toilet with my pants down, my head in my hands going, how the fuck did you wind up here? So I go to do my morning ritual and just go sit in the bathroom and have that conversation with myself about how I fucking wound up here, right? And I walk into the bathroom and I fucking see this prick. He's the only one in there. There's 3 urinals, and I lock eyes with him as he hears the door open. I see this guy and I think, oh, this fucking guy, right? Okay. I finally, so I walk over, and now the courtesy in the bathroom, right? Always 3 urinals. One guy's on one end. You don't take that middle urinal. You go to the one that's on the left, right? And then you want to give that person space. So what you do is you just leave that middle urinal open. Well, you know what? Fuck this guy. I don't like this guy. I don't want him to feel comfortable for 1 second. So I walk right up to that middle urinal and I'm fucking just glaring at him. Unzip my pants. Even though I went in there to take a dump, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to sit in this urinal right next to him. And I'm just mean mugging him. And I could tell he's not really looking at me, but he knows I'm fucking just staring at him. And I'm just eyeing him up and down like a leg of lamb, right? And I could tell he's trying to get the hell out of there. And because I went in there to take a dump, I kind of had a fart in the chamber already, right? So as I sit there and I unzip my pants and I'm kind of glaring at him and I whip my dick out and I start pissing, I feel this fart starting to build here. And I'm like, you know what? Let's fucking go. So I just rip that fart and it is a beauty. Now picture the small bathroom, 3 urinals, 2 toilets, tile walls, those small little tiles, like in the gym bathrooms, in the gym locker rooms in high school and college, right? Where everything echoes in there. And this fart is loud, and it's about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds long, and it just goes as I rip it out. And the entire time that I'm ripping this fart, I'm looking at this motherfucker right in the eyes and mean mugging him. And as soon as I rip that fart, and like the second second of the fart, you hear like the first second reverberating off the walls. It was just fucking perfect. And as soon as the fart's done, this guy looks over at me scared because he sees me mean mugging him now. And I just ripped this heroic fart. He fucking zips up his zipper and he fucking heads out of there, doesn't even wash his fucking hands, and makes a beeline for the door. And as I turn back and I look at him and I see him getting the fuck out of there, I say, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Was that too loud for you?" And he turned around and looked at me weird and fucking just left without washing his hands. But you know what? That moment, was just such a win for me, because it's the little things in life sometimes, that can make things all worthwhile. And that was definitely one of them. I left that day feeling that I had stood up for myself and that I took somebody that made my day worse yesterday and I made his day worse today. And I felt better for it. And you guys are probably asking me, why are you telling me this story? Well, there's a moral to this story. And the moral is you always fucking stand up for yourself. You don't take shit off of anybody that doesn't deserve to be giving you shit. Now, if it's your boss, if it's your partner, that's one thing. If it's the fat prick next door who doesn't like you ringing your bell too loud, you fucking take him into the bathroom and you fucking fart on him. And then you ask him, was that too fucking loud for you, you piece of shit? Because you just gotta, you have to love yourself, all right? And you don't take shit off of anybody. So I hope you enjoyed that story, you guys. We've got more work to do, though. We've got a main card to break down here. We got 5 more fights, and it is going to start with this one, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? We got Tyson Pedro against Harry Hunsucker, and I would encourage anybody out there that's looking to get into the UFC and looking to find managers, call up Tyson Pedro's manager, because this guy got back-to-back fights for his guy after taking like 3 years off. And the names he got were Ike Villanueva and Harry the Hurricane Hunsucker. So this is, obviously a fight that's lined way, way, way too wide. Pedro's minus 800. The Hurricane is plus 500. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 1,000. That is a 91% implied probability. So before I start going into all these numbers and telling you about the statistical advantages of one fighter or another, can we just be honest with each other and say that Harry Hunsucker's got a chance to land a big shot in the first 2.5 minutes of this fight, and if he doesn't, he's going to get drowned by Tyson Pedro, and even if he does, he probably loses. But in this, we're looking to make money, you guys. And I mean, you just can't be in the business of parlaying minus 800s, minus 1,000s if you want to be a long-term profitable gambler. The fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. Probably one of the biggest layups ever, but I don't know if I've ever seen a fight doesn't go at minus 1,000 before. Have you guys? I know I've never seen that. I can't remember ever seeing it. This is the most juiced fight doesn't go to decision line ever. Harry Hunsucker's got 12 fights, and I believe 10 of them have finished under 2.5 minutes, under 1/2 of a round, not 1.5. So to think that this guy even sees a third round at any point in his career is hard to picture. But this should be Tyson Pedro. Should be Tyson Pedro inside the distance. I think he takes down Harry and probably submits him. Harry Hunsucker does have the albatross around his neck of being the only guy taken down by Jared Vanderaa, and Jared Vanderaa finished him soon after. This should be Pedro. It should be Pedro quickly and painfully. And Pedro's got a much better grappling game than Hunsucker does, and he's very dangerous on the feet, obviously, as well. Pedro, we'll call it late first round submission here, but you guys didn't even need me to tell you that. The next fight, Marcin Tybura against Alexandr Romanov. Romanov is a minus 385 favorite. Marcin Tybura plus 320 favorite. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 275 for this fight. So Romanov is 5 years younger, but it's Tybura who's the much bigger dude here. He's got 1 inch of height, and he's got 3 inches of reach. It's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup, so on the feet, the power strikes will be open for both guys. Jackson Wink for Tybura. I don't know where he's training now. The Lion Club for Alexandr Romanov in Moldova. Tybura, big-time experience advantage here with 13 more professional fights, about 220 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 5 more years as a pro fighter. And Tybura's got 10 more UFC fights, and he's got about 150 more minutes in the UFC cage. So Romanov's younger, but it's Tybura who's bigger and Tybura who's more experienced. The finish rates for both guys, we got Romanov who's finished 4 of his 5 UFC fights, and he's got a 94% finish rate. He's finished 15 of his 16 wins inside the distance. And then Tybura has got a 68% finish rate as a pro, and he's finished 4 of his 9 UFC wins inside the distance by knockout, and it's 4 of 5 for Romanov inside the distance, 1 by knockout, 3 by submission. And Tybura has never been submitted, and he has been knocked out in 4 of his 7 pro losses and in 3 of his 6 UFC losses. When this fight is on the feet, I think it's going to be Tybura who's the better striker. He's been in there with just better strikers and has been willing to stand with them. I mean, he went 3 rounds with Volkov and won a round on the feet against Volkov. Tybura lands a little bit more than he absorbs, 3.65 landed, 3.44 absorbed, almost 50% accuracy. Not much power for a heavyweight, only 1 knockdown in 15 fights. Romanov doesn't have any knockdowns, though. It's Romanov who's using his wrestling to win fights. 43% striking defense for Romanov, 54.5 for Tybura, and Tybura's been knocked down 4 times in 15 fights. Now, when we go to the grappling numbers here, we see some really great numbers by Romanov. 16 of his 23 takedowns, 70% control time for, only 8% control time against. So he's out-controlling his opponents at almost a 10-to-1 ratio, but he's only showing 20% takedown defense. I think Juan Espino took him down 4 times. So we do know that when Romanov takes that step up and he fights somebody that's got some grappling chops like he did when he fought Espino, that, the ability to be able to just, destroy these dudes with your wrestling like Romanov had been doing in the past wasn't there. And we saw Romanov push to the edge and then made to quit after basically. Now, I mean, I've been kneed in the nuts in judo before, and it's fucking brutal. So I don't know, what happened there, but I mean, I think he made a veteran decision there to say I can't continue, because I think he knew where that fight was going and which direction it was headed. Tybura's grappling is very, very good for a heavyweight. This guy's been in the cage with Fabricio Verdum for 5 rounds. His top game, when this guy gets on top of somebody, they either get finished or the referee stops them at the end of the round and Tybura gets back up. Nobody's getting up from underneath Tybura. While Romanov is, allowing people back up. That's why he's got 16 takedowns in 5 fights, because people do get back up and make him work for more than 1 takedown in a fight. Tybura's got 19 takedowns in 15 fights. He's getting 1.54 per 15 minutes, but it's 6.46 for Romanov. Tybura's out-controlling his opponents 30% to 14%, and he's out-takedown his opponents 19-5, while Romanov at 16-4. So, yeah, Romanov needs to win these minutes in the grappling exchanges, because while it's on the feet, it's going to be close. But Tybura's got excellent takedown defense. And then if you look at the strength of schedule, it's all Tybura as well. Everywhere that Romanov is good, Tybura is good. This is a heavyweight fight. Tybura's bigger. He's more experienced. He's the better submission grappler. He is a black belt and has been since Romanov turned pro. He's fought the much better brand of competition at the UFC level as well. And in the striking exchanges, he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. And he's, like I said, 1 minute against guys like Alexandr Volkov. Minus 385 for Romanov just makes no sense at all. It just doesn't make any sense at all. What happens if he can't take down Tybura like he couldn't take down Espino? Is he going to have to take the easy way out after a nut shot again and claim that he can't continue? I have a 1-unit bet on Marcin Tybura at plus 350. It's just too wide of a line. And I think when you look at the stats here, it's hard to find places other than the control time ratio where Romanov is that much better than Marcin Tybura. And like we said, while Romanov is getting these takedowns at a 70% clip and out controlling his opponents at almost a 10-to-1 ratio, Marcin Tybura, over a gigantic sample size, has only been taken down 5 times and is showing 82% takedown defense. And he's only been controlled 14% of his UFC career. So if he keeps to those numbers, he's got a great chance to win this fight. So yeah, the line doesn't make sense to me. I can see Romanov winning a decision here, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I'll actually pick Romanov to win a very close decision here. But I'm betting Tybura, and I'm very confident that plus 350 is just way, way too wide. And I don't think Romanov is going to look minus 385 here. I just don't. So line's a little bit silly. I'm on the Tybura side here for 1 unit, and I'm looking for him to make this a very dirty fight. And if he gets on top of Romanov, I think Romanov is going to be in a world of trouble. That leaves us to the last 3 fights of the night, you guys. We got Jose Aldo checking into plus 120 up against Merab the Machine Dvalishvili, minus 140. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 155. Definitely the bookies think that this one's going the full 3 rounds here. We've got Merab is 4 years younger, but Aldo is 1 inch taller and has a 2-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys are orthodox fighters. We got Jose Aldo with 20 more pro fights than Merab Dvalishvili, and he's got about twice as much cage time as Merab Dvalishvili, with 441 minutes of cage time compared to 224 for Merab, and about 10 more years as a pro for Jose Aldo. So while Aldo is the bigger guy, it's Merab who's younger, and because he's younger, it's Aldo with much more experience. Twice as many UFC fights, twice as many pro fights, twice as much time in the cage, and more than twice as much time in the UFC cage. And Aldo's been a champion, fighting 5-round fights for a very long time, while we have never seen Merab go the full 5. In terms of the finishing numbers here, we got a 28% finish rate for Dvalishvili. He's finished 1 of his 7 UFC wins inside the distance. For Aldo, it's 31% at the UFC level and 58% as a pro. Dvalishvili been a lot more durable, though, as he's only been finished in 1 of 4 losses. While for Jose Aldo, it's 67-7. So it's 5 of his 7 losses have been inside the distance, 4 by knockout, 1 by submission. When we look at the striking numbers, Jose Aldo obviously is the better striker here. Even though the numbers don't show that. I mean, if this were a bare knuckle boxing match where Merab couldn't shoot takedowns, Jose Aldo would be minus 1,000 here. So it's Jose Aldo on the feet. But while this is on the feet, Jose is going to constantly have to be worrying about the takedown entries of Merab Dvalishvili. So he's not going to be as crisp and confident as we're used to seeing him on the feet here, when he knows that he can plant his feet and throw heavy without having to worry about a reactive double leg coming back his way. But yeah, it's clearly going to be Aldo who's the better striker here. We saw Dvalishvili just get, the shit beaten out of him by Marlon Moraes, and that fight could have been stopped. But Moraes is a guy who has 1 round in him. Jose Aldo is not that guy. He's got 5-round conditioning here. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Jose stops the takedown attempts. Look, Merab Dvalishvili, 139 takedown attempts in only 9 fights. So this guy is somebody that you can count on to push the pace with his wrestling. 44% control time for, only 5.65% control time allowed. Aldo outcontrols his opponents, but at a very small rate. But Jose Aldo's grappling efficiency is next level. Check this out. 23 takedown attempts for Jose Aldo in only 19 fights. So just barely more than 1 takedown attempt per fight. 79 takedown attempts for his opponents. So Jose Aldo's opponents have shot 56 more takedowns. And despite the fact they've shot 56 more takedowns, Jose Aldo has 3 more takedowns than his opponents do. That's how efficient Jose is. When Jose's going for his takedowns, he's getting them. When Jose's opponents are going for takedowns, they're not getting them. And Jose can take your back. He's a black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, great submission grappler in his own right. Very, very well-rounded fighter. There's really no weaknesses in Aldo's game. Merab is a one-trick pony, but that trick works every goddamn time. Bring 9-round conditioning for a 3-round fight. Shoot a takedown every single second that you're on the feet. Put your opponent's back up against the cage. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. And rinse, and then repeat once more. Can Jose, at his age, stand up to that kind of pace and pressure that you're going to get from Merab the Machine Dvalishvili? If there's a guy that can do it, it's Jose Aldo. Merab, when he's fought good grapplers, guys with good takedown defense, John Dodson, one of some of the best takedown defense in the history of the UFC, he lost that fight. Ricky Simon, another fantastic wrestler with good takedown defense, he lost that fight. Jose Aldo, you got a guy who's a much better striker than those 2 guys, for sure. Well, maybe not Dodson. Dodson's got a ton of power, but and he brings that same takedown defense. So at plus 120, I gotta believe that Jose Aldo is going to win this fight. I can't bet on Dvalishvili at juice here, knowing that Jose Aldo, over a gigantic sample size, fighting the top level of competition that the UFC has had to offer since day one of being in this organization, and stopping a lot of takedowns, mind you, from 145-pound wrestlers like Chad Mendes. This is going to be a very tough row to hoe for Merab Dvalishvili. And let's just say that even if Merab is able to push that pace, that he shoots 23 takedowns and never lets Jose get his feet planted and throw strikes, even if he does all that, if he's not getting the takedowns and eating some elbows in the clinch, he's probably going to lose the fight because he's not doing damage. Merab doesn't do damage, and he's not submitting Jose Aldo. So it's either Merab by decision. That's the only way to bet Merab Dvalishvili. He's not going to finish Jose Aldo. So if you're on that Dvalishvili side and you think that the wrestling of Dvalishvili and the pace and the pressure and the youth, all those things is going to be enough for him to win enough minutes to win this fight, just bet him to win by decision. He's not finishing Jose. And then I like the money line here for Jose Aldo. The money keeps coming in on Merab. I think I'm going to take it at plus 120, but I just know that I'm keeping a very close eye on this line, and I'm picking Jose Aldo to win this fight by decision. Great fight here. Can't wait to see Merab take this step up and fight somebody with the kind of takedown defense that Jose has here, because these are both great fighters, and this is a great pay-per-view scrap here. Can't wait for this one. Next fight, the long-awaited return of Luke Rockhold going up against Paulo Costa with his new hair plugs. The guy feels invincible. Luke Rockhold's 37 years old, and we haven't seen him fight in a cage for over 3 years at this point. And I don't think we've seen him win in a cage since the year 2017 against David Branch. 1 month from today will be the 5-year anniversary of Luke Rockhold's last UFC win. He has lost 3 out of his last 4 fights to Michael Bisping, knockout round 1, to Yoel Romero, knockout round 3, and then up at 205 pounds to Jan Blachowicz in round 2. So, and then we've got Paulo Costa, who we haven't seen in a minute either. Costa's last fight was moved up a weight class to 205 because he had too much red wine against Marvin Vettori, and he lost there. And then the Adesanya fight, he got knocked out. But he beat Yoel Romero, which is something that Luke Rockhold didn't do. Beat Uriah Hall, beat Johnny Hendricks, Bang Bose, Gareth McClellan. So, after it was from the Hendricks fight on that we've seen him fighting real competition here. Hendricks, Hall, Romero, and then he got the title shot against Adesanya and got murked, and then the classic 5-round war against Marvin Vettori. I remember that night I needed Vettori to win the fight for me to almost have an optimal lineup in DraftKings, and I couldn't watch the last 2 rounds of that fight because Paulo, his conditioning was so much better than I thought it was going to be, and he was so much more durable than I thought he was going to be, that I was extremely nervous about that fight. But Vettori got the unanimous decision, but it was a close fight, man. And that one was about 10 months ago, so it's good to see him back in here against Luke Rockhold. Now, this one is it. I don't know what Luke Rockhold is doing here. Maybe he still has fights on his contract, and because of the fact that he's got fights on the contract, maybe he's willing to go in here and take a check and maybe get knocked out one more time in order to do that. I don't really see what Rockhold's going to bring. I know he's the bigger guy. I know he's got the better reach, good grappler, good all-around fighter. I mean, beat Weidman back in the day. But what is he doing here? 3 years off? 3 years off, and you've lost 3 out of your last 4 fights, getting knocked out in all 3 of those losses, and You're going to come back against Paulo Costa, a guy who's just, had a 5-round fight against Adesanya that ended in the second, and then went 5 rounds tooth and nail with Vettori. This is a show me spot for Luke Rockhold. It's just a show me spot. I feel like Costa should be minus 700 here. I really do. And then shout out to my guy Luke, Sparring with Reality. He had a great tweet the other day where they were showing the Helen Yee interview with Luke Rockhold, and he was saying, after I knock out Paulo Costa, I'm next for the title. And what Luke wrote on the top of that was, that delusions are the sign of a regressing fighter, and just being delusional. And I mean, how the fuck could he think that he's going to get a title shot if he beats Paulo Costa here after being away for 3 years, after losing? Even if he gets this win, he's still 2-3 in his last 5. Got knocked out by a guy with one eye who was 40. I just don't understand this. I don't know why he's coming back here. I think Paulo Costa is going to knock him out in the very first round. Paulo Costa is very difficult to take down too. So if Rockhold doesn't like how it's going on the feet here, he might try to take down Costa, but Costa's been controlled less than 7.5% of his 70 minutes in the cage. So does Rockhold get him down? Probably not. I mean, he throws heavy strikes, but Paulo's pretty fucking durable. Luke Rockhold is not durable. Not at all. Maybe in the strength of schedule. Yeah. See, Rockhold's got the slightly better strength of schedule. He's fighting the far more experienced competition, but the ratio is the same. And when you look at the wins, they're better for Rockhold. But these wins are coming in 2012, 2014, it's been so long since Luke Rockhold was a relevant middleweight. The win over David Branch. What was David Branch in the UFC? 2-5? Look, I could break down the stylistic components of this matchup. This is Paulo Costa is going to punt this dude's head into the upper deck in front of, tens of thousands of screaming fans in Salt Lake City here. So, yeah, this is Paulo Costa all day. I don't know why Luke is coming back to take this fight, but I hope he's safe, and I hope that his brain cells stay intact and that Paulo gets him out of there without hurting him too bad. But yeah, I don't know why this fight's happening. I don't know why Luke Rockhold is coming back when, like I said on Stat Diggers, this dude could just be crushing ass, modeling. He doesn't need this shit. That's one thing about fighting, right? If you're going to bet on somebody as a professional fighter, first step, make sure that they need the fucking money, right? Like somebody like Conor McGregor, he sold his own whiskey company. The guy's worth over $100 million. If you think that Conor McGregor is going to come back and have a resurgence at this point in his career, he doesn't need to fight. And if you don't need to fight, you're not going to succeed at this level. Luke Rockhold can make more money having dudes take pictures of him with his shirt off than getting into the cage with his shirt off against somebody like Paulo Costa. So why is he doing this? And then why is he saying dumbass shit like, I'm next for the title? Yeah, Paulo Costa, you guys. I'm definitely taking him to win this fight. And then that brings us to the main event. We've got Kamaru Usman, maybe the greatest of all time now at 170 pounds, facing up against Leon Scott here at plus 315. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 110. Interesting main event. These guys have fought before, and it was just all Kamaru. So what is Leon Edwards going to bring differently this time? I don't know. I really don't know. But Leon Edwards is the younger man. He's 5 years younger. He's 2 inches taller, but it's Kamaru Usman who's going to have the 2-inch reach advantage. Leon Edwards is a southpaw. Usman switches stances. But Usman, if he wants to shut down Leon Edwards' jab, he can just fight orthodox. And if he fights orthodox, that left hand will be forward and he can paw Edwards' jab hand with that. And I think that's probably what Kamaru does here, because his last 2 fights against Colby was fighting southpaw the entire time, so he's used to fighting southpaws at this point. But Kamaru and Leon both have great jabs, so we might see Kamaru, switching back and forth so that he can pump that jab when he wants to, and then switching back to orthodox when he wants to be a little more defensively responsible. But I think on the feet, this is actually going to be close, because Kamaru's striking has made leaps and bounds since these guys first fought many years ago. I think it was 2015 when they fought. It was only Kamaru Usman's second fight at the UFC level. When the experience numbers here are very much the same here, almost the same in fights, almost the same in minutes. It's just Leon's been fighting for about a year and a half longer, and they both have about 15 UFC fights and over 200 minutes in the UFC cage. Kamaru Usman finishing at a 34% clip, which isn't good, but that's better than Leon Edwards, who couldn't finish a banana. 27% finish rate at the UFC level and a 48% finish rate overall, while it's 50% for Usman. Usman finishing his only loss, I don't know when that was, long time ago. And Leon Edwards has never been finished in his 3 pro losses. So while they're at distance striking, that's where Leon Edwards is going to be at his best. He's a fantastic striker, really technical. He's a southpaw, so that's difficult to deal with. Decent power numbers, as he's landed 4 knockdowns in 14 fights. But we can see here that Kamaru Usman's power numbers are even better than Edwards, as he's landing his 0.6 knockdowns per 15 minutes, while it's less than half that for Edwards. Usman landing about 2 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do, and throwing about 2.6 more attempts, while for Edwards, he lands about 0.5 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, and he throws less than 1 more per minute. So both of these guys outvolume their opponents, but it's Kamaru who's more powerful, Kamaru who's more accurate, Kamaru who's got the better striking defense, and Kamaru has never been knocked down in 15 UFC fights, while Leon Edwards has been knocked down just once in 14 fights, but it was by Nate Diaz in the 5th round. When we look at the wrestling numbers here, you see Edwards, pretty good numbers here. 26% control time for, 21% control time against, 70% takedown defense is solid. 35% takedown accuracy is not bad. And he's getting, even though his opponents have attempted 7 more takedowns than he has, he's out controlling his opponents. So decent efficiency here. But Kamaru Usman puts up video game numbers in the grappling, you guys. 50 takedowns in 15 fights. He's getting his takedowns at a 49% clip, and he outcontrols his opponents 47.36% to 2%, and he's stopped all 31 takedown attempts against him at the UFC level for 100% takedown defense. That might be a record. I don't know if anybody has 100% takedown defense in the UFC with more than 30 takedowns defended. I'd have to look at my database, but I'd be very surprised if that was the case. And then, so the question is how much is Kamaru going to commit to the wrestling here? Because if he's willing to commit to the wrestling, if he's willing to commit to the clinch exchanges here and brings the same conditioning that he usually does, he should easily be able to win minutes on the ground against Leon Edwards. It's exactly what he did the first time that they fought. And he outcontrolled Edwards in that fight. $650 seconds to 40 seconds. And he even landed some big shots on the feet too. But, lately we've been seeing this guy, guys like Jorge Masvidal, he's outstriking Jorge Masvidal. And he's not even necessarily doing it. Like the second time, he only had 102 seconds of control time and 362. He knocked him out. He was the flat out the better boxer in that fight. More powerful. So it's hard to see a path here for Edwards. If Kamaru Usman doesn't wrestle, that could potentially be a problem, because if this winds up being a 5-round striking match, then, then Edwards is going to be live, and he probably looks a lot better than what he's lined at right now. But Kamaru Usman's a very smart fighter, and this guy has spent his entire UFC career changing his game plan to meet his opponent, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't put Leon Edwards up against the cage and drop for double legs here, just like he did the first time that they fought. And I don't know. I mean, Leon's striking has probably improved as well since the first time, but not by the amount that Usman's has. And let's face it, Leon Edwards just hasn't been fighting. Leon Edwards has fought how many times in the last 4 years? I mean, he's been waiting for this title shot, but he hasn't been doing dick. 2 fights since the end of 2019, and one of them was a no contest that barely even went into the second round. And then the other one was against a 40-year-old Nate Diaz, who's so fucking delusional at this point in his career that he was saying, I mean, and these words actually came out of his mouth, that he said he wanted to fight in Ngannou. I mean, so yeah, I know that people are trying very hard to come up with ways that Leon Edwards wins this fight. I don't think he wins this fight. I think Kamaru Usman continues doing what he's been doing the entire time in the UFC. I think he puts up his 16th straight UFC victory, and I believe ties Anderson Silva with this win, if he gets it, for most consecutive title defenses ever. So the pick is going to be Kamaru Usman, and I think he gets it done by decision in this fight by dominating the control time exchanges in the clinch and on the ground. And we did it. 13 fights. We broke them all down in less than 2 hours. Let's look at my UFC 278 tracked bets so far, you guys, as we've got not much going on this week. These lines are so juiced, so wide, that it's hard to find spots here without parlaying, all these juiced favorites. And I've been getting roasted in parlays. So I think I'm just going to try to find the plus money spots that stick out, try to keep it small this week, protect the winnings that I've had over the last 2 weeks, and see if we can find these plus money spots where if we throw enough shit at the wall, some of it's going to stick here. But Leo Santos for 1 unit at plus 260 was the first bet. Marcin Tybura for 1 unit at plus 350 was the second bet. And then we've got the Santos-Gordon fight doesn't go to decision, which the prop template loved. We had the trifecta there. I believe that's severely underpriced, seeing as Santos is 42 years old and has got terrible conditioning, and this fight's going to be taking place at elevation against a guy in Gordon who definitely has excellent conditioning and can push a pace. But Gordon's also extremely chinny, and Santos has been very dangerous in the striking exchanges early in fights. So I think that the stylistic matchups, as well as the line being underpriced, according to my analytics, say that that's a pretty good bet there. And then I'm taking a very, very long look here at Jose Aldo around plus 120. I think he's going to make this a very greasy, close fight. And I think if he stops the takedowns of Dvalishvili, he should win this one on the scorecards by damage landed. But those are the track bets. So we are down to the last one of the week, you guys. The last in a 12-week stretch. The light at the end of the tunnel is visible now. But we've got one more order of business here on Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy. And there are 74 of you guys hanging out with us. And I believe that my guy Victor DeJesus, my God, ring a ding with a huge donation of $50. My guy Vic from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Much love to your brother, saying, hey, Unc, enjoy yourself a bottle of Adictivo tequila on your week off. It comes in a beautifully designed twisted bottle. Great stuff from what I understand. I will do exactly that because I'm going to definitely need to relax after this nutcracker of a 12-week stretch, Vic. And I truly appreciate you for the donation, for always supporting the show, for always being here on Just a Tip and interacting with the chat. And if you're looking for the best adult dating site right here, it's not this one. I don't know who these clowns are, and I don't know why they keep spamming my chat. But I think that's a really shitty adult dating set, and don't go there. And I'm going to kick this prick out of here. So we're going to make sure I'm not blocking Victor here. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to get him out of here. But yeah, you guys, I appreciate almost 8 of you that are in here. Jones never lost is correct. Yes. Jones Silva had 10 plus defenses. Usman is like 5 or 6. Oh, no kidding. Am I right? Okay. So maybe it's just the winning streak, because I know he's on a big time winning streak here. And maybe it's not the title defenses, but maybe it's the 16 straight wins for Usman. That would be a record. But either way, the guy is just absolutely kicking ass. But who is going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week? That is the last question that we have to answer, you guys. And there's a lot of great spots here. But I didn't want to give you, Tyson Pedro, because he's minus 700. What else didn't I want to give you? Miranda Maverick, because she's minus like 500. There's a lot of really juiced favorites here, but there's one that just seems like it's not juiced enough. And there's one where maybe it's a mistake for me to lean so much on the narrative here, but like, all right. So Paulo Costa to shave the ass of Luke Rockhold is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week this week. I just don't see an avenue here. If Luke Rockhold is still motivated, if he's still training hard, if he still gives a shit, those would all be very shocking to me. Seeing where that dude is in his life, seeing how much success he's already had. He's part of this bygone era of mixed martial arts. He's a different fighter. It's a different game now. And you just don't take 3 years off at the age of 37, come back a new and rejuvenated fighter with a thinking you're gonna get a title shot here. Costa has been in there with the best, and the best guys now, not the best guys 6 years ago. And he's that fight against Vettori taught me a lot about how tough this dude is, how durable this guy is. And, we know that Rockhold has the potential to be a sniper, not unlike Israel Adesanya. But, he's going to, like I said, it's a big-time show-me spot. And I don't think he's going to show me anything on Saturday night. I think Paulo Costa is going to show him the door, wish him a happy retirement, and knock him out with the first big shot that he lands, because that's kind of how Rockhold has been. His chin just hasn't held up. And maybe it comes back. Maybe he winds up landing a big shot and makes me look stupid, but I'm going with Paulo Costa as Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week to culminate the 12-week stretch that we've just made it through. You guys, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for hanging out here. There are still 72 of you guys hanging out live, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow, you can check me out on Pub Sports Radio, 6 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show with DFS by the Numbers, Gordo Gambles, and Monk Maddox. And then you can find me tomorrow night, 10:30 Central Time, after the Club and Sub podcast right here on Uncle Weezy's channel. We got to do one more Ask Weezy. It's a pay-per-view, UFC 278 Ask Weezy tomorrow night at 10:30. And then on Thursday, on the MMA Engine YouTube channel, we're going to try to nail down a time that we can do this Jay Perrin interview, and then maybe he can talk me into changing my pick from Aori Qileng to Jay Perrin after the interview by telling me how he's going to win this fight for us. So check out that Jay Perrin interview. Should be coming back up Thursday on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. But in the meantime, you could check me out here tomorrow night at 10:30. I'd like to thank all 70 of you that are still hanging out in here with your Uncle Weezy on a Tuesday night on Just a Tip, midnight Central Time. God bless each and every one of you. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 278. Let's get it, guys. Thank you so much.